Hi, this is Anthony Parent of IRS Medic, and you probably know this channel. We deal with a lot of international issues. We deal with the FBAR. I started out on that. FBAR penalties and the volunteer disclosure back in 2009, and that led to other things. It led to sort of realization that the United States taxes its people on universal tax jurisdiction or citizenship-based taxation, meaning wherever you make money anywhere in the universe, it's subject to taxation. Additionally, the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act came out in 2010, was active in 2011. And here's the thing, there's a lot of confusion about what is the difference between citizenship-based taxation and FATCA, and if one goes away, does the other. So this podcast, we are going to dedicate, and we're going to dedicate it in the honor of Suzanne Hermann, who had this tweet right here. I'm amazed by the number of people who think FATCA is citizenship-based taxation. Perhaps that deserves further discussion too. Well, here we go. John, do you think this is a big issue for people to understand that they're conflating CBT and FATCA?
Yeah, I think it's a big issue. I mean, I don't know how much it affects the bottom line in terms of their behavior, but I think that these are very different issues, and I think they do need to be understood as very different issues.
Right, and the thing here is FATCA didn't invent citizenship-based taxation. Rather, it was claimed to be an enforcement tool that would help the U.S. raise a whole bunch of free money by mandating that banks spend billions of dollars in compliance, probably each year, to report information that U.S. persons hold in bank accounts that the U.S. government doesn't do anything with. And allegedly, the United States is supposed to share information back, but, well, that's not really on the table. Anything else to add? Anything else to add on what I'm talking about there, John? Is got it basically right that citizenship-based taxation existed well before FATCA.
Oh, absolutely. Citizenship taxation is something that has existed since really the dawn of civilization, but it took Americans to recognize that it existed. Okay, so the United States of America, that great citadel of freedom and justice, was the first to proclaim as a universal truth of history that at least the part of North America below the 49th parallel and above the Mexican border should have citizenship taxation, right?
Right, and for those of us, those of you who are fans of history, maybe you won't be that much of a fan now. So citizenship-based taxation first reared its very, very ugly head in 1862 with the Revenue Act of 1862. No 16th Amendment was needed, and there was no challenges to it because Abe Lincoln did whatever he wanted, and no one, and then he just imprisoned people that disagreed with him. And in order to fund his war to enforce an incredibly horrible tariff on the South, he and the federal government wasn't getting money anymore. He imposed the first income tax that had, as a component of it, universal tax jurisdiction, because Abe Lincoln wasn't going to let any Americans escape paying for their war by moving to, say, somewhere like France. Keith, I got a question for you.
Sure.
So FATCA is a big deal, and it's often the reason why people will contact my firm. They'll say, oh my God, I got a FATCA letter from my bank, and I realized I'm not in compliance. I better do something. I'm worried about the IRS. I'm worried about these penalties. And that's often the trigger to alert people that they have an issue. Now, those letters have been tailing off. They were bigger letters back, but now they still do come out. So people are basically told to say, hey, look, you have to give us your social security number so that, we can keep your bank account. Am I explaining the situation correctly?
You are. Usually in the FATCA letters that I have seen, the people with whom I've dealt, they get the letter and they either have to supply a social security number or a certificate of loss of nationality. One of those two, in order for their bank accounts to either not be frozen, not to be closed, or whatever. That's what the choice is for that particular individual who's been identified as a U.S. person.
Okay, so for a lot of people, they don't have the certificate of loss of nationality. They
Right,
don't have it.
right.
So
And a lot
then,
don't have a social security number.
all right. So then, what do you do?
Well, there's different avenues that people have taken. So let's see. Avenue one is that the individual could be an American overseas, an accidental American. They will go and apply for a social security number, and they will go through the whole process of getting it. It's quite a cumbersome process.
Mhm.
They get that number and they submit it to their bank,
Okay.
and that's it. And they move forward with their life because it's satisfied the requirement of the bank. That's avenue one. Avenue two is they ignore it and they just put it off, put it off, and put it off. Some banks will just let it go. Some banks won't. I think the latter is what's happening more, that they're not going to let it go. But I know some people that just keep ignoring it. Avenue number three is that they go and they do a formal renouncing of their citizenship just to get the CLN to present to their bank, and then they move on with their lives. So what I also get is I have people calling me in a panic that they have received a FATCA letter, and which in their mind automatically states that, oh my God, I have been entered. I will be entering the U.S. tax system when I give them a social security number. What do I do? Well, I'm going to use your guys' usual statement. It depends. It depends on their situation. And some people will enter the U.S. tax system depending on their situation. Some people will just move forward, give them their social security number, and just move forward with their lives.
So the point is that giving a social security number, getting one, doesn't necessarily enter you into the U.S. tax system.
No,
Right.
no. And also the other part to keep in mind, if you recall last year, former Commissioner Redding, at a hearing spoke about FATCA and spoke about the data that has been dumped on the IRS, and they don't have the resources to even go through that data. And I do know that there are some countries that will just do a major data dump on the IRS, and they just won't weed through the information that they have to ensure that they give what is needed to the IRS. They will just dump a lot of data. So they don't even go through the data at the IRS.
That's sort of the absurdity about this. So, all right, I think we've covered this topic, and this is just what I would want to conclude with: is that if you are looking to get that CLN, that certificate of lawsality, I would suggest you reach out to John Richardson. His information is below. And also, as you can tell, Keith really knows this stuff inside and out. He deals with people all the time who have questions about their FATCA letters. If you get something and you're not quite sure of what to do, if you should call a U.S. tax professional, there's answers I have to give as a U.S. tax attorney. If you just want to get a different opinion for someone, I would suggest that you reach out to Keith, a global advocate for the American abroad. His email is below as well.
Yeah. And I go through just to interject just real quick,
Yeah.
and I go through the pluses and minuses for each action, that somebody may take. What are the risks?
Yeah, and what I love about you, Keith, is that you're not an attorney who can only advise one thing and force people into something that
and I never
that might
advise
not make
people.
sense.
I just present the information and they come up with their own conclusions on what they
and
need to do.
Yeah, and I love it, Keith, because so many times when I get someone who you recommend to me, I'm not wasting my time. They know, okay, look, here's the thing. I have to do this. I have to comply with the U.S. system. I have to do a streamline, or I have to do it. So I really love that you help out so many people get the answer that someone a tax professional like myself or John might not be able to give, and so that's just wonderful. So our next topic that we're going to talk about, our next podcast, is a little thing that's bugging us. We're going to talk about how we think there should be a united front and that people should be really outraged over the whole concept of this citizenship-based taxation that sort of forms that FATCA frosting of excrement goes over. That we want to remove the cake, so there's no place to put the frosting. So our next podcast, we're going to be talking about some of the things that are going on, and hopefully we could change some minds and hearts about some of the indifference we seek from people who have a system that is totally killing them and others. This is Anthony Parent for John Richardson and Keith Redmond. Like that you're watching, please comment here. I've been responding to nearly every comment. And please be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.